morning and welcome back to Football League World TV. Another weekend of EFL action in the bag. So we're back with the EFL Weekend Review Show. Plenty to get through. I'm your host, Alfie Burns, and joining me are my two colleagues, Ned and Adam. Ned, how are you this morning?
Yeah, all good, thanks, mate. Obviously, Premier League and stuff back this weekend, but another sort of action-packed weekend of results in the EFL and a bit of a higher scoring one this time around, which was nice as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Plenty of goals, which means so much to talk about. Adam, how are you?
Yeah, not bad, thank you. As Ned said, some more high-scoring games in the Championship, and the more goals, the better, really. So I'm looking forward to getting into this one. There's some very good games.
Absolutely. We're streaming across Facebook, YouTube and Twitter this morning. So anybody joining us want to get involved in the discussion, please do, and we'll look to get your comments up on the show. As we always do, we're kicking things off with the Championship, and one place to start right at the top of the division with Blackburn Rovers. Currently the only team in the division to take 6 points from 6 following Saturday's convincing 3-0 win over Swansea City. Watford can match that tonight by making it 2 wins from 2, but Blackburn sitting pretty at the top of the table. Ned, have you been impressed or surprised by them under John Dahl Tomasson so far?
I think a little bit of both, really. It's hard not to be impressed given the players that have gone, and obviously the manager goes. Joe Rothwell to Bournemouth, Darragh Lenihan to Borough, that obviously the headline exits, and the teams they're joining in a newly promoted team, and one sort of tipped by many for promotion, shows really their quality. But they've managed to just shake it off, really. And I thought this was a case of, I mean, John Dahl Tomasson will have known going to Swansea that they weren't going to outpass the Swans. It was a case really of sticking to the game plan, and the game plan worked out perfectly. Obviously, they had to be clinical in the final third, and they were, but that's a sort of a reflection of a team that you can see is built with having goals in it in mind. The acquisition of Sammy Smodic's really showing that he's a midfielder is going to get you goals. Fantastic finish from Ben Brereton Diaz, and for some reason giving Lewis Travis the armband seems to have made him unbelievable in front of goal as well. But yeah, as you say, a little bit surprising, and they've certainly ridden their luck a little bit in both games. Chances for Swansea in this one, and obviously that QPR game a tight one as well. But yeah, hugely impressive, and just willing to work so hard for each other. So yeah, some real positive signs at Ewood Park.
I mean, this was really clinical. 5 shots on goal, 4 on target, and of course 3 goals in the game. They only had 29% of possession and made 292 passes, which were in comparison to Swansea, who made over 700. It really sort of shows that it was a clinical performance from Blackburn, Adam.
Yeah, definitely. Some fantastic finishes, as Ned said. First goal, fantastic kind of pressurising, capitalising on a mistake. And Ryan Hedges just so composed before laying it off to Smodics, put it in the bottom corner. And that's the first goal, and it kind of sets up the game for them, really. Ben Brereton Diaz, I thought, was superb for the second goal, just having that strength, really, and really kind of asserting himself as the dominant player in that situation. I thought he did very well. And then the little dink was fantastic, really. And Travis, he's been an absolute revelation in these past 2 games, an absolute screamer against QPR, and he pops up again. I think this goal is just as kind of impressive, really. Making that run forward on the right hand side, kind of overlapping, and then just smashing it into the top corner. It was a really kind of clinical performance. At the same time, I mean, maybe this is a real compliment to Blackburn, but I'm not too concerned about Swansea yet. They did show some promising signs. Obviously, the clean sheet will be a massive kind of boost for Blackburn, but there's no real shortage of chances for Swansea either. So the fact that Blackburn did come away with a 3-0 win, it just goes to show how impressive the performance was, really. And it was just a really impressive result for them. So there's some very, very promising signs there.
Let's just touch on Swansea then, Ned. Last season, we saw the style there, sometimes without the substance, and that's been sort of the start to this season, dominating a lot of the ball, but only a point on the board so far. What are your thoughts with Russell Martin's side at the minute?
I mean, I think you're right in that sense, but I think the way things clicked into gear for them last season, there was a lot of people expecting them to sort of, come out the blocks really fast. But it's important to remember this is sort of still a a work in progress from Russell Martin. It's quite a significant change, that style of football and that focus on it, and they're really just coming off their first pre-season to sort of work on that. So disappointing, yes, but certainly no need to push the panic button for me. I mean, the game could have been very different if they convert one of a lot of chances. I think Obafemi would be kicking himself really. The header for the first one, tough, but a couple of other ones where you feel he probably could have done better in around the box. They really just need him or Joel Perreault to sort of rediscover that goal scoring form. I mean, so many balls flashing across the front of the box sort of throughout the game, and rarely it seemed a Swansea a foot would get on it before a Blackburn one. So perhaps that's just a reflection of not having found that goal scoring touch yet. And as for defensively, I think that heavy possession style of game is often going to invite teams on you, and Blackburn obviously willing runners, but it's individual errors really that have cost them defensively for two of the goals, just really sloppy bits of play. So not particularly worried about them. I do feel as though as they build up a bit of momentum, we should see them start to click into gear, but yeah, certainly not the ideal start.
Elsewhere on Saturday then, Sunderland 3-2 winners at Bristol City. Ellis Simms with a brace and Ross Stewart with the winner in a comeback win for Alex Neil's side. It's been a great start to life back in the Championship for Sunderland with 4 points on the board from the opening 6. Simms impressing in this game with a brace. Ross Stewart getting his first goal of the season, very important for him. And of course, Sunderland's first win of the season as well. Adam, this was just a really positive afternoon for Sunderland, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I think the performance was obviously very promising, but I think the result is just as important, really. It's strange because they're a side that's only just come up, really, but they've got quite a bit of kind of expectations on their shoulders, really. A lot of people are tipping them to kind of challenge for the top 6. So in terms of getting a win, I think just having the 3 points on the board is the most important thing. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it was a fantastic performance. They showed some really good character, really, after Coventry. Obviously, Gyökeres, bit of individual quality has pulled the game back and has made them lost 2 points. So, great character they showed. And as you mentioned there, Ellis Simms, great confidence really for his first goal to strike it with one of his first touches. Really, he had other options, and maybe on his debut he would have wanted to maybe pass it to someone else, but he. A lot of other players would have wanted to pass it to someone else, but he took the shot on himself, and it was a clinical finish, and very, very composed as well for the second goal as well, and I think he's going to be a real asset to them. Obviously, this season he's got to continue and impressing as well, because I think that Sunderland will probably bring in another striker before the transfer window closes. They've only got 2 main forwards at the moment, so there's a lot of pressure on him, I think, to continue performing. And then the third goal is basically trademark Sunderland really, and kind of utilising their strengths with Pritchard with a fantastic cross. We know all about his ability with the ball, and then Ross Stewart with the header. It's a very simple goal. Maybe Bristol City should have done their homework a bit more on that one, but no, it was a very, very kind of promising performance from them. And it gives them a real platform to build on. This isn't an easy game as well. Come to Ashton Gate, I know that Bristol City conceded quite a few goals, but it's still not an easy game. So for them to take 3 points and do it in the manner that they did, kind of responding, it's really kind of promising signs for them as well.
I think it's important at this stage of the season not to get 2 up and 2 down on results, but the table doesn't lie at this stage. Only Huddersfield have had a worse start than Bristol City, who have failed to put a point on the board so far. Ned, slightly concerned about Bristol City, or is it a case of not getting 2 up or 2 down?
I think it's a case of not getting 2 up or 2 down. I think obviously the major, I wouldn't say worry or concern, but certainly frustration is that it's a sort of that they don't seem to have learned from last season's mistakes. Again, a game in which they looked fantastic going forward, but having lost Matty James in the warm-up was big. That they lacked a bit of control in the middle, and then we saw those defensive frailties again. But again, I think it's a case of individual errors that you'd hope will start to sort of lessen as these defenders get to sort of know each other better. Perhaps Naismith for the first, just really sloppy, and Viner, he sort of has been backed, which was a surprise to a lot of people because it seemed as though he was going to go, but another pretty poor display, his mistake for the second. That said, sort of as I said for Swansea, certainly no need to panic. Just as against Hull, I think City could easily come away with 3 or 1 point here. I mean, bounce back and from that early goal and controlled the game at points. A team still missing the likes of Semenyo and James. And I think, that there's certainly positives to look at with that attacking play. And as I say, things go a little bit differently. We're talking about Bristol City getting 3 points on the board here, or at least 1 point. But yeah, I mean, they need a result, you'd think, against Wigan and or Luton, because, pressure's only going to be building ahead of the seven-side derby against Cardiff in a few weeks' time. They don't want to be heading into that game without any points on the board, because certainly that's not the sort of where you want to head into a derby game, which can be so unpredictable. Obviously, the big positive for them, really, they can focus on is Andy Vyman still in inspired form, another goal for him, an assist. But yeah, certainly frustration, because it seems it's the same old issues raising their head, a lack of control in games and defensive frailties costing them. But no need to panic just yet.
Another 5-goal thriller across the Championship then between Queen's Park Rangers and Middlesbrough. QPR 3-2 winners. 3 first-half goals, the key for QPR in this game. A first win on the board for Michael Beale as ours boss as well. Coming against a good opponent as well, Adam.
Yeah, very much so. I think it was such an important win to kind of bury the demons from the second half of last season, just the real poor form. And Chris Willock showing that he's a game changer yet again. Fantastic first goal. I think the defending is a little bit poor, to be honest, from deep still, but I still think, it was a fantastic solo effort. And, definitely, it kind of changes the game really with them getting on the front foot. Obviously, coming up against a Borough side that were very good under Chris Wilder last season. So to get that kind of early breakthrough and to be so dominant in the first half was such a big boost for them. Obviously at 3-1 that they could have collapsed really, because obviously Borough managed to get a goal before half time. It could have been a big blow really for QPR. So. And also, conceding not too long after the break, just over 10 minutes, they could have easily collapsed, really. So the fact that they did manage to hold on is a massive boost for them, and it's going to be a massive 3 points. Obviously, they were helped out a little bit by Darragh Lenihan's red card, but no, that was kind of in stoppage time, really. So, that was kind of, that didn't help them out exactly too much. I think that's the one of the more promising things, really, for QPR, but just getting the first win on the board, I think, was absolutely important, really. And fair play to Michael Beale. I don't think he had too much of a choice, really, going with the back four again. Obviously, Jake Clark-Salter was out, but for sticking with that back four, you've got to commend Michael Beale, really, because he could have easily kind of gone with the back three, panicked after the first game. But no, he continued with his same methods, and against a very good side, got a very good 3 points. Obviously, some of the Borough defending was very questionable, to say the least. But still, it was a promising performance, especially in the first half, to go 3-0 up. It was a dream scenario, really, and I think it was much needed.
We were talking about Middlesbrough as a good opponent, and they showed how good they can be in the Championship last season under Chris Wilder. They entered the season as many people tipping them for a place in the top 6, this coming year. But just a single point from 2 games, 2 tricky games, it's got to be said, Ned, but quite an underwhelming start for Borough.
Yeah, certainly an underwhelming start. And I think you've got to think Chris Wilder's going to be absolutely furious about. There's not much you can do, as Adam said, the Chris Willock goal. I mean, a fantastic solo effort from him. And I think hopefully what could be a massive season for him, building on last season. If he can stay fit, then he could be fantastic for the R's. I felt like this was an opportunity ahead of the game. I really did. I felt like it was a good time to head to Loftus Road for Borough. But, conceding 2 pretty poor goals from set pieces, that is going to absolutely drive Chris Wilder up the wall. When we think of Borough and we think of Chris Wilder teams, we think of, well-drilled, versed, teams that sort of function well together, well structured, and and we didn't see that, and Borough just left themselves a little bit too much to do, really. As you say, certainly tough games in going away to QPR on paper, but I felt like it was a good time to go there because it's still early days in sort of the Mick Beale tenure. But yeah, disappointing for Borough. Marcus Force's goal, a consolation for them. Great to have him off the mark, and really good movement and a reliable finish. And I think shows really the difference between having a natural finisher in that position. You think back to that Duncan Watmore chance against West Brom, really similar position, and he puts it wide. Force converts, obviously nothing more than the consolation here, but certainly a positive to take. But yeah, I mean, Borough will have been looking at these first two games thinking that they want at least 3, if 4, perhaps even 6 points. So to come away with 1 is disappointing. But I do think you look at some of the other sides that have been sort of tipped to do well, and no one's really breaking away yet. So there's a long time to go. Hopefully, this just serves as an opportunity for Chris Wilder to sort of put the rocket up and sort of get them going, really, for what are some tough games ahead for Borough still.
Moving down into League One, then we'll start with an emphatic victory for Bristol Rovers, 4-0 winners at Burton Albion. Again, sort of with an action-packed first half. Conor Shaughnessy sent off within a minute for Burton, and then Bristol Rovers making them pay with 4 first half goals. Given the circumstances, they were in Bristol Rovers' favour in this game, Ned, but what a result for Joey Barton's side on their travels.
Yeah, absolutely. Big first win for them after that opening weekend defeat to a Forest Green side that I think a lot of people have tipped to struggle given the amount of the mass exodus there. But yeah, huge first of all for Bristol Rovers to get that 3 points on the board, but also to sort of show that they may have stepped up a level. Elliot Anderson may not have come back, but this is still that lethal sort of gas side that we saw put so many teams to the sword and sort of summed up really by that obviously 7-0 win to secure promotion on the final day of the season. Obviously that the red card helps them out. I know the position it is that on the pitch, it's always likely to sort of give the referee a decision to make. I do think really that Conor Shaughnessy can feel himself a little bit unlucky in the sense that there's certainly he's not a malicious one. He sort of swings for it, and the Rovers player just gets a touch just a bit in front of him. So perhaps a little bit unlucky there, but it's so easy, I think, for teams that early on, a red card, and they just sit back and they're solid and they're hard to break down. But so I do think we've got to credit Rovers for taking advantage of that situation, which, we saw teams, the likes of Salford, for example, not able to do that when Swindon were down to 10 men in their game. But yeah, I'm big to get those first 3 points on the board for them. Obviously, there'll be Rovers fans now that, on the back of a 4-0 win, that were thinking sky's the limit for them. It's still going to be about sort of really establishing themselves at this level and putting enough distance between them so they don't have to be looking over their shoulders. And wins like this will help them do that.
As for Burton, then, I've seen a lot of people tipping them to struggle in League One pre-season, and it's not been an ideal start. They are rock bottom in League One after 2 defeats, and they've shipped 7 goals in those 2 games. Do you share other people's concerns when it comes to Burton, Adam?
Yeah, I do to an extent, because you look at the Bristol Rovers side and it's not a completely overhauled side from last season. You've still got the core there really of the team kind of involved. So, to lose against a recently promoted League Two side that hasn't had that overhaul in that fashion, even with the red card, it's very much a concern. But I do think they lost the game in the 4th minute. Obviously, the double blow really with the red card and then the early free kick, which was excellently taken. And they just didn't really offer all that much going forward. Obviously, perhaps that's to be expected following the red card, but they didn't really offer that much at all. I mean, obviously they've got Victor Adiboyajo, who was at Barnsley last season, and didn't really score that many goals and wasn't really that much of a threat. And maybe that told kind of at the weekend. I guess you can't really kind of pin it on him. They didn't have a huge number of chances, but they didn't really have too much going forward. Obviously, the second goal as well was obviously a real source of concern. That the defending, there was at least 2 or 3 Bristol Rovers players that are already kind of there to slot the ball home, and perhaps that's where the extra man told really. But that is a little bit of a concern. And then obviously Collins, who I think is going to adapt to League One very well, obviously on the left hand side was a constant threat really. I think it was a little bit too easy for him to get his goals, but he was a major threat. And I think they were also a victim of that as well, having that extra real attacking and clinical threat really on the left hand side really paid dividends for Bristol Rovers and gave Burton an extra job to do really. Obviously he was so clinical last season, so yeah, it's a massively concerning time for Burton Albion, and to lose in the manner that they did. Obviously, the positive is the fact that they didn't concede further in the second half, but to collapse in that manner, it is a real concern. And that's the reason why there should be some worries, but they'll be looking to move on as quickly as possible from this.
Next up, we'll move to League One's early leaders, Peterborough. 3-0 winners against Morecambe, which means it's 2-2 for Portion. They're the only club in League One to do that so far in the season. 3 more goals this week and 3 different goal scorers. Ned, they're the division's most lethal side.
Yeah, and I think it's not a huge surprise, it has to be said, having kept so many of those sort of key attacking players. Obviously the loss of Smonix, but any club that's going in with the likes of Jack Marriott and Jonathan Clark-Harris and adding those players like Ben Thompson, that is a team that is always going to be dangerous. And I think key for them is that they've shrugged off the hangover of a really disappointing season in the Championship, where they were unable to sort of extend their stay there past a year. But I have to say, I was sort of expecting them to do this against the poorer teams in the division. I was expecting them to blow teams away. They were doing it before they were promoted, and I'm expecting them to keep doing it throughout. Really, I think we're going to learn a lot more from their upcoming games against. I think they're playing Plymouth twice and Sheffield Wednesday once in the next 8 days. Obviously, one of them's a cup game, so that might be rotated teams. But certainly, the 2 League One games, we should get to know a fair bit about them, really, and it's those bigger games against bigger opposition that I think could really dictate whether we're looking at a title winner, a top 2 finish, or a sort of top 6 finish for them, because they are certainly going to be there or thereabouts this season. But yeah, I mean, you can't. There's no denying it that any defence coming up against the attacking options that Grant McCann has this season are going to, it's going to be a real tough test.
Ned sort of touched on it there, and we'll get a greater idea of where Peterborough are going to be this season. But there's some big names in League One, thinking Ipswich, again, Derby County, Sheffield Wednesday. But on paper, this Peterborough side's really good. Where do you kind of see them, Adam? Do you see them as a benchmark for the division, or is it too early to say?
Yeah, I think they're kind of that kind of Rotherham of the division, kind of, perhaps, this season's kind of Rotherham in a way, because they're not exactly talked about or under the spotlight kind of too much, but they've got that kind of stability there. From last season, there hasn't been too many changes to their starting lineup. They've kind of retained the core of their squad, as Ned said, really. They've retained quite a few of their best players. Obviously, Ronnie Edwards is going to be a real asset. He's only going to get better. I definitely thought that Sheffield Wednesday were going to be kind of the pace setters in the division. But, obviously last weekend we look back to the Portsmouth result, and the defence just simply wasn't good enough. Dominic Iorfa, I didn't think was on his game at all, and that was a little bit of a concern for Sheffield Wednesday. So I think at the moment, Posh, obviously it's a bit early to judge, as you say, but they're in fine form at the moment, and the fact that they kept a clean sheet will be a big boost for them. I know that it's you say only Morecambe, but they've still got Carl Stockton there. They've got a bit of quality, so and obviously they were heavy favourites, but still to keep a clean sheet is a confidence booster after having some early setbacks against Cheltenham. So I think both in terms of defence and going forward, I think they'll be all right. Obviously, having strength in depth will be important, but the fact that they have retained quite a few of their players, will really benefit them going forward. So I think they are in very good shape at the moment. And as you mentioned, the likes of Johnson, Clark-Harris and Jack Marriott, having them in League One, it's going to be a massive asset, and the fact that they also had contributors from over the pitch, obviously 3 different goal scorers, will be very important for them. Because all it takes is one injury to Clark Harris, and it could derail their season. But they've shown that they've got players that can contribute across the pitch as well. And there was some real kind of championship quality football, I think, shown, especially for that first goal, a nice passing move. So things are very promising under Grant McCann, and it'll be interesting to see how they get on in the coming weeks.
League Two up next, then, and we'll start with Barrow's 3-2 win over Bradford. 5 goals in the last half an hour of this game, with Josh Gordon's winning goal coming in the 96th minute. Safe to say that this game was chaos, and Barrow now have back-to-back wins to start the League Two season. Ned, how impressed have you been by them in the opening weeks?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's impossible not to be impressed, really, isn't it? I mean, this is the sort of game, well, the last half an hour anyway, that reminds you why we love League Two, isn't it? Physical, chaotic, as you said, and those late goals flying in. Cook obviously thinks he's bagged the points in the 95th minute. The Bradford fans are streaming onto the pitch at Barrow, and then they go up the other end and score a winner. It's classic stuff, isn't it? And it really, it's the sort of thing that you can only really seem to get in the EFL. So yeah, fantastic stuff, and you have to credit Barrow for keeping fighting to the end. I think last season was a slight disappointment, and we know that they don't have the technical quality that some of the other squads and the teams in the division do, and the spending power, for example, the likes of Bradford. Not to take anything away from some of the players they do have, but it's always going to be important for them that they have that fight and determination, and that they want it that much. And I think that's the positive thing that we've seen. They've shown that sort of heart to pull through in this one. I've been impressed, but what I would say is, you can't expect to concede 2 goals a game and keep winning games. I think that's 2 3-2s. The first one against Stockport, and now against Bradford City. Impressive to come away with the wins, but I think they will be accepting, and they need to sort of know that the work still has to be done to shore things up at the back, because as positive as it has been, you as I said, you can't concede 2 goals a game and expect to have success.
As for Bradford, then, we know all too well that in the EFL, the size of the club does not matter when it comes to performance. They've just got a single point on the board from their opening 2 fixtures. They've got such a high-profile manager in place in Mark Hughes. How quickly do you think he could come under pressure, Adam, if results don't pick up?
I guess it's not quite the scale of Ipswich Town's kind of rebuild last summer, but I do think they have quite a few changes over the summer. Obviously, they've got some very good quality players. Obviously, Richie Smallwood, who was a real regular in the Championship last season. So I think he'll be given until the winter, maybe December time, to put his stamp, especially with his previous reputation as well. Obviously, previously managing in the Premier League. I think he's got a little bit of credit in the bank, from his previous spells elsewhere. But I think he'll come under pressure perhaps in November or December, unless things go very, very wrong. I think he'll be given time to kind of turn things round. Obviously, this is only the second game. Obviously, the one real positive is the fact that they know that they can count on Cook to come up with the goals. Obviously, 2 fantastic goals coming off the bench as well. Look really sharp, and 2 really good finishes. Obviously, the second one there was a little bit of luck, but he's got to be in the right position at the right time. So that's one real positive, really, for Bradford kind of coming out of this game, and I'm sure he'll be a contender to start in the next one. But yeah, it is very hard to kind of judge at the moment. They've got some very good names, obviously Ryan East as well, who's had a very limited amount of Championship experience, Richie Smallwood, and others as well. So I think for me, it's about kind of giving them perhaps a couple of months to kind of gel together, and then make a judgment from there. They've obviously got great potential as a club with a great manager and a good set of players. But I think it'll take perhaps 1 or 2 months to kind of bed in. So I'm not panicking for them too much at the moment, but they'll be hoping to get some points on the board sooner rather than later. Otherwise, there'll be doubts creeping in and critics as well, and that's kind of the last thing that they'll want.
Finally, then, we're going to look at Walsall's 1-0 victory over Newport. Mickey Dimitriou's own goal, the difference for Michael Flynn, who was, of course, back at Newport with his new club, Walsall. Walsall are leading the way in the division on goal difference. Just want to talk about Flynn a little bit, Ned. He's such a good manager at this level, and Walsall are benefiting from that at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Michael Flynn, he just knows how to build squads at this level. And he knows how to win games at this level. And I think, well, we certainly saw that, and we've seen that so far from Walsall this season. Something exciting, potential of what we could see, and an exciting time at the club with that investment as well. I would say, reflecting on this, while it's no surprise to see Flynn's side sort of getting results and winning games, winning tight games, does feel like there's a fair way for them to go to really be a team that we're really thinking about as a contender. I think they're pretty fortunate in this one. I really do. I think this is a game that if it comes 6 months ago, Newport win, I mean, they were the side in ascendancy for me, and this, particularly before the goal, and undone by what I can only describe as a very unfortunate own goal. It seems like Dimitri sort of tumbled the ball into the back of his own net. Yeah, and I just feel it was always going to be hard for them to adapt to losing attacking players with quality in the final third, like Dom Telford, Finn Azaz, Ollie Cooper. And if this game comes last season, one of them converts one of those chances for me. And so, Walsall, of course, you want to be where they are, top of the table, and it's important they build on this momentum, but important too that they don't let things go to their head too much. And I guarantee that with Michael Flynn in charge, that won't be what happens. The first thing he'll be talking about, whether it's this morning, tomorrow morning, whenever it is, when they have that team meeting, is how they can improve and how they can build. And I think that's the benefit of having an experienced and a proven quality manager at this level like Flynn in charge. So yeah, positive signs for Walsall, but also I don't think anything for Newport to be too concerned about. But yeah, I think we want to see more from Walsall if we're really going to consider them contenders.
That concludes our look at the weekend's action, but the review continues later on Football League World TV, where we're going to be looking at 2 winners and 2 losers from across the EFL this weekend. So a slightly different show for you coming up on the channel. So please do tune in for that. It should be a good one, but between now and then, take care and we'll see you again soon.